be serving tonight as the moderator for our call with Mr. Donald Trump, a man who needs no introduction. If at any time this evening you'd like to ask Mr. Trump a question directly, please press *3 on your phone, and you'll be prompted to an operator who can assist you with that. In addition to that, as always, if you'd like more information about Donald Trump, please go to www.donaldjtrump.com for more information. That's www.donaldjtrump.com for more information. And with that brief introduction, I'd like to have the opportunity now to introduce you to someone who needs no introduction, Mr. Donald Trump.
Good evening. It's a great honor to be with the people of South Carolina. We'll be doing a lot of these over the coming months, and I look forward to it. I have great respect for South Carolina, and I have great love for the country, and we have to do something because we are in very, very serious trouble as a country. We have a president who either doesn't know what he's doing or is grossly incompetent, and when you see what's happening, it's very frightening. So we are going to straighten things out, and they're going to be straightened out and can be straightened out much more rapidly than anyone understands. I deal with politicians all the time. They're all talk, no action. You look at what's happening on so many different fronts, whether it's Benghazi or whether it's ISIS or whether it's the IRS scandal or whether it's, frankly, Hillary Clinton's emails, which they talk and then nothing happens. And now we have another big scandal coming up, and this is the beauty of all scandals for the Clintons, and that's the one that you've been reading about today, which we'll see what happens. But again, the politicians will probably talk about it for 2 days, and then you won't be hearing about it. So we're going to do something about that. I'm looking very, very seriously, and I think everyone knows that, and it's starting to reflect very strongly in polls. I'm looking very seriously in getting involved and running and straightening out this mess, and it can be straightened out forthrightly, and it can be straightened out with intelligence and with toughness. You look at what's happening as an example with China. They're taking our jobs, they're manipulating their currency, they are doing a number on us, and we don't even have politicians that understand it, and that's including the Republican politicians. I've been making speeches for years on China, explaining to what they do. They're getting richer and richer. We're getting poorer and poorer as a country. We're now number 2 economically to China. That took place a year ago, which was frankly unthinkable. But they're taking our jobs through a manipulation of their currency. Our product, we do a great job with product, a better job than they do. But we can't compete because of what they do with their currency, because we have people that don't know how to deal with China, and we have all the cards. You look at Russia, you look at, and by the way, Japan is back with their manipulation. They're back big league, what they're doing to us from the economic standpoint and with the economy. And really the new China is Mexico, because Mexico is not only killing us at the border, where we have to really do something very, very seriously, because what they're doing, we're sending hundreds of thousands of people in short periods of time through that border and let them go. If you want to become a citizen of Mexico, it's virtually impossible. They're one of the toughest countries in the world. But what they're doing with their border, and they're just sending, and they are not sending their best and their finest. Believe me, they're sending people that are not so hot, whether it's gang members or rapists, or lots of people are coming through that border that this country doesn't want, and they don't want, and other countries don't want. So we have to be very, very firm. We have to build a very strong wall. Nobody can build walls like Donald Trump, that I can tell you. And we have to be smart. But Mexico is doing something else. They're beating us economically. It's becoming the car capital of the world. They recently took a tremendous plant. A big German car company was going to build a plant in Tennessee. And miraculously, all of a sudden, they decided just recently, 2 weeks ago in the Wall Street Journal, to put it front page of the Wall Street Journal, to put the plant right in Mexico. So they're going to make cars. Their citizens are going to be employed. We won't. They'll finish the cars. They'll send them across the border. No tax, no nothing. We get absolutely nothing. So you look at what's going on with all of these countries, and I ask you again, when was the last time you win? We don't win at anything anymore. We used to win years ago, but we don't win anymore. It's, you don't hear us, gee, we beat China at a trade agreement, or we beat Russia at something, or we beat Japan, or we beat Brazil, or we beat anybody. And now we have the beauty of all beauties. We have You look at what's going on with Iran, where we're trying to work a nuclear deal, and we have amateur night. We have people that have no idea about negotiation. And it just came out that hundreds of millions of dollars we're paying currently to Iran. We're paying, nobody even knew this, we're paying hundreds of millions because they didn't think it was appropriate to get involved and put that into the negotiation with Iran having to do with nuclear. So we're going to pay them $10 billion over a period of time, and we're paying currently hundreds of millions of dollars, and we didn't want to have it complicate our negotiations. And just to finish, before we take some questions, because I'd love to answer, and we're going to be with you for close to an hour, so I look forward to it. But you look at the Bergdahl deal, where we get Bergdahl and they get 5 killers and leaders who are right now back fighting us. But this is the way we make deals. This is it. Our unemployment rate is at 19%, a real rate. Not, you know, they tell you 5.5, 5.6, 5.3. You hear all of these different numbers. It's nonsense. When people are looking for jobs, and they're not going to, they give up. And as soon as they give up, they're considered not in the statistics. So you just look at that. You look at our levels of poverty, our levels of problems. Look at the middle class, what's happening. And then you have people like Bush, where and by the way, the last thing we need is another Bush. He's totally in favor of Common Core, which is a disaster for this country. A disaster. Our education is one of the worst in certain parts of the world. I think we're number 24 in the world, and almost everybody is beating us that has a system at all. And Bush wants to go with Common Core as opposed to local education, which is far better. And a guy like Bush is very, very weak on immigration, and so are other Republican candidates. So we will be doing something that is going to surprise a lot of people. And in a nutshell, what I want to see and what I want to do is make our country rich again so that I don't have to cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. Very important. Everybody else, every other Republican candidate wants to cut and hurt Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. I don't want to do that. I want to take back jobs, take back manufacturing from all of these many countries, China included, that are ripping us off like day and night. I want to take back the jobs, and I want to make our country rich again so that we can make our country great again. We're not cutting Social Security. We're not cutting Medicare. We're not cutting Medicaid. We're going to make ourselves rich so that we can afford it, because people have been paying into the programs, and now all of a sudden they hear Republicans talking about cutting. And that's not going to happen with Trump. We're going to be a great country again. If I run and if I win, this country will be great again, believe me, and it won't take so much. So we have the cards. It will not take so long. So with that, it's a tremendous honor to be with everybody, and we're going to start taking some questions.
And again, this is Corey serving as your moderator for this evening. If you have a question you'd like to pose to Mr. Trump, please press *3 on your phone now. Also, feel free to go to www.donaldjtrump.com for more information. We also have a poll right now that we'd like you to weigh in on, and the questions are very simple. What is the most important issue facing our country? If you think it's national debt, please press 1. Terrorism, press 2. Taxes, 3. Illegal immigration, 4. Or the economy, 5. That's national debt, 1. Terrorism, 2. Taxes, 3. Illegal immigration, 4. Or the economy, 5 on your phone now. So we have a lot of callers in the queue. The first caller here has been waiting, and I want to get her right on the line. Her question is, this is from Kathy, and I'm going to put her on live. Kathy, you're with us now. Hello. Kathy. Kathy?
Yes. Hello, Kathy. How are you? Donald Trump.
I'm doing very well. Thank you, sir.
Great, Kathy.
I am hoping that you will run. My family will back you 100%, and I think you're doing and talking a fantastic deal if you will be able to run. So you have our support, and I hope very well that you will be able to do that.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And I just want to address that just for a second, because a lot of people think I do this because I'm having a good time with it. This isn't a good time. I can be doing other things. I love my company. I've built a great company, a fantastic company, and people know that from New York, and people know that when they see the statements, and all of that will have to be filed, and I look forward to doing it. We built a great company. But our country is in such bad shape, and it's run by such incompetent people, losers. It's run by such incompetent, grossly incompetent people then I have to do something about it, because it's just not going to happen with politicians. Politicians don't get it. For instance, the other people that are running, the Republicans, Kathy, you don't hear them talking about taking back our jobs from China. They wouldn't know what to do. By the way, they're going to pick up my mantra, because all of a sudden people are saying, wow, Trump is having a big impact. And, you know, the only reason I don't have this true impact, because a lot of people still think I'm not running. They keep saying, oh, well, he's not going to run. We love Trump. We know Trump would do the best job, but he's not going to run. He's just having a good time. I'm not having a good time, and people are going to be very, very surprised. But if I run, believe me, we're getting our jobs back. China, Japan, all these countries that are ripping us left and right, they won't be, and we'll be friendly with them. I've made a lot of money dealing with the Chinese, tremendous hundreds of billions of dollars dealing with the Chinese. And we will get the country back, and they're going to respect us again. We can have, you know, tremendous respect. Business Week did an article. What do the Chinese most want? One of the things they said, with all I deal with China, one of the things they said is, we want anything Trump. One of the 10 or 15 items. I remember reading it. I couldn't believe it. I said, they want anything Trump. They like Trump because they respect Trump. So we can deal with them. We can get our jobs back, and they'll be just fine. But we have all the cards, Kathy. So we have politicians, honestly, they don't even bring this subject up. All they want to do is cut, and they want to cut your Social Security and other things, and it's not fair. So we're going to do something that's going to surprise a lot of people, Kathy, and I really appreciate your statement. I really do.
Thanks, Kathy. And the next call is going to be from Charlene. Charlene, and again, just everyone, if you have a question for Mr. Trump as we're on live, *3 will put you in the queue. Also go to donaldjtrump.com for more information. Charlene, you had a question about ISIS. You're live on the phone with Mr. Trump.
Hello, Mr. Trump. Charlene.
Hi, Charlene. Hi. Oh.
And what would you do if you were to become president about ISIS? I'm thinking in the borders also, but I'm interested in your answer about ISIS.
Okay, well, the borders, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that border so strong and so tough that only very legal folks can come in. There won't be any nonsense likes going on. But let's talk about ISIS first of all. I would do things to ISIS that they wouldn't believe. But you know what I hate to see, Charlene, is when our president tells everybody exactly what we're going to be doing. For instance, a month ago, we were going to attack a certain city. And he announced, in 2 weeks we're attacking, we're going here, we're going there. And I'm thinking to myself, what would General Patton and what would General Douglas MacArthur, great generals that we had, that we need now, what would they say if they heard presidents and even the people in the military talking about every single thing we're going to do to go after ISIS and others, but ISIS? So I really like, and I've said this answer before, I think if I run, I really have a good chance of winning because I see the kind of enthusiasm. I draw the largest crowds. I get tremendous applause, everything else. I hate to explain what I'm going to do to ISIS because you don't want to put them on notice. I can only tell you this. I would be so strong in ISIS, you wouldn't believe. And they will come to the table so fast that your head will spin. But the last thing you want to do is start signaling everything. This is what I'm going to do. If I become president, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. They're listening to every word that you're saying and that I'm saying. The last thing you want to do is signal everything. But I will tell you, we will be very, very tough on ISIS. And what's going on with that situation where our president doesn't even want to mention the word Islam. He doesn't want to talk about it. He keeps it totally out of this. And it's called give me a break. You have to know who the enemy is, and you have to go after him. ISIS will be brought to the table very, very quickly. Thank you very much, Shirley.
I want to remind you all we're live with Donald Trump, so if you have any questions, please press *3 to be placed into the queue. And also, we have a poll going on right now. What is the most important issue facing our country? If you believe it is the national debt, press 1. Terrorism, press 2. Taxes, 3. Illegal immigration, 4. And the economy, 5. Please vote now. We're going to go to our next caller, and with that, the question is from Diana in Barnwell. Let me put her on live. Diana?
This is Diana from Barnwell, South Carolina. Hello,
Hi,
Mr.
Diana.
Trump.
Hi, Diana. How are you?
I'm doing very well. There's
Great.
only one thing I would like to say rather than the question I would like for you to answer. You
Okay.
keep saying, if I run. I don't want to hear an if I run. I want to hear I will run.
Okay.
Because
Well,
you sound like
nice.
the person that will get the job done that needs to be done in our country.
Well, let me just tell you that I think you're going to be very happy. Just stay tuned, and you're seeing what's going on. And I'm all over. I'm going to Iowa. I'm going to South Carolina. I'm going to New Hampshire. I'm speaking in Virginia, where, by the way, they usually have a crowd of 100 people, 150 people. They have over 1,000 people signed up, and they're telling people they can't come anymore. There is something. And, you know, my platform is pretty simple. It's like common sense. The things that are happening. I mean, think of that trade. I mentioned it before. 5 for 1. But we get a trader. Who wants him? Give him back, as far as I'm concerned. 5 for 1. Who would make a trade like that? But everything we do is that way. So a lot of what I say is, you know, I wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. This isn't even the art of the deal. Most of this is common sense. How can we be so stupid at our leadership position? So I really appreciate what you just said, and I think in the very near future you're going to be very happy, and this country can be brought back and much more rapidly than anybody understands. But I will say this, a politician cannot do it. Won't happen. Thank you very much.
And again, we're live with Mr. Donald Trump today. If you have a question, please press *3. You'll be placed into the queue, or you may go to www.donaldjtrump.com if you'd like to have your questions answered there. Susan in Somerville, you're going to be next on the line with Mr. Trump. Susan?
Hi, Mr. Trump. It's such an honor to speak with you. My son's in New York, and he's in finance, went to school up there, and I'm just so proud of everything that y'all do there. But my big concern is how far our integrity has gone in regard to the respect our president gets, and I thought things were bad after Jimmy Carter. I've been involved that long, and I was just so thankful when Ronald Reagan came along to restore what America's greatness was. And can you do that for us?
Well, you know, I was a big fan of Ronald Reagan. I knew him. I liked him a lot. He liked me a lot, and there was obviously a pretty big age difference. But I think he was special. I have pictures in my office of myself with him. And you're right, we're not respected. You look at Russia, the way they behave, and they behave that way because they have no respect for the president. I'm not talking about wars and this. They just have no respect for him. And you look at China in particular. They never thought they were going to be able to get away with this most recent manipulation, which is, you know, just massive what they're doing. It's massive. And I can tell you one little quick story where a friend of mine who's in the excavating business just bought Komatsu tractors made in Japan and made by Japan. And the reason is because Japan has so manipulated their currency and down their currency that Caterpillar could not compete. They couldn't compete with Komatsu. So this guy calls me and he said to me, you know, Donald, I'm so sad because all my life I've been ordering Caterpillar tractors and I just ordered Komatsu's because the currency manipulation gave me a deal that's so crazy. It's so much better than the deal I can make with Caterpillar. We shouldn't allow that to be happen. And we have tremendous power over Japan because of the fact that they sell their cars here by the millions. And, you know, we just have to, the right negotiator, which would be me, or somebody that I would know, because I know the best negotiators in the world from Wall Street and other places. I also know the ones that aren't good and the ones that are highly overrated. But we would do phenomenally in a very quick negotiation with Japan. That would change very, very quickly. So we're not respected. Our leader's not respected. And the potential we have is enormous, but we have people that have no idea what they're doing. So I really appreciate your question. And if I run and if I win, you're going to see changes really, really quickly. And I think people are going to be very, very surprised. You know, a pollster came up to us today that we don't even know, that I really don't even know. And he said, you know, something's really happening with Trump. There is something really sort of wild going on. What's going on? You're actually going to run. They said that to a friend of mine, and he relayed the message to me. And I can see it, because every time I'm going out, we're packing houses. And they're tired of watching the all-talk, no-action politicians. They're tired of watching it happen. And I will tell you, I know, many of the politicians that are running right now, some of the folks that are running, and I like a lot of them. I know most of them. Many of them have already come up to my office to see me. But I can tell you, it's not going to happen. You put these people in, it's fine. You might want to do it. But you put the Bushes of the world in, it's not going to happen. I mean, if you think about it, we have to end, as an example, Obamacare. We have to end it. We have to totally repeal it and replace it with something far, far better, and for a lot less money. But if you think about it, Justice Roberts, who essentially approved Obamacare by coming up with a decision that nobody can believe in the Supreme Court, he was the deciding vote. Justice Roberts is a Bush appointee, and Jeb Bush favored Justice Roberts. He wanted Justice Roberts. Well, Justice Roberts gave us Obamacare because it could have been ended a year ago when he voted shockingly to everybody, when he shockingly voted, probably to make the Beltway folks happy, but he voted in favor of Obamacare. That was a shock. Well, Jeb Bush wanted that appointment, and his brother is the one that made that appointment. So we have to be smart, and we have to put the right person in there, and you watch what's going to happen. Barbara?
Yes.
Hi, Barbara. Donald Trump,
Hi,
how are you?
Hi. I wanted to find out, what is your position on Common Core, and are you willing to battle the teachers' unions that would come up against you?
I'm totally against Common Core. Look, Common Core should be absolutely a local decision. Our education system, as I said before, Barbara, our education system in the United States is horrendous as compared to most other countries and many other countries. So I'm totally against it. It should be local, and of course you have to battle the unions because they want not what's necessarily good for the students. And I'm not saying bad all the time, but they do not have, in many cases, the best interest of the students involved. And I will say, again, strongly, you have to fight Common Core, and you have to end Common Core. It just has to be a local decision. Local decisions are going to be best for your students. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Maria in Myrtle Beach, you're live with Mr. Trump. Maria?
Mr. Trump, thank you
Hi.
very much. It's an honor to talk to you.
Thank you, Maria.
I missed you 2 weeks ago when you were here.
Oh,
I would like to know what you think about this deal that they're making with the Iranians. And don't you feel like Bibi Netanyahu should be included in this deal because he's the one it's going to affect immediately?
Well, first of all, Israel is going to suffer greatly, and Bibi is a person that actually I did an ad for his campaign. I was asked to endorse his campaign when he ran for the Israel, for prime minister, and he is devastated over it. It's a horrible thing for Israel. It's a horrible thing for our country. It's not going to stop nuclear. What it is going to do is lead to tremendous proliferation all over the Middle East, probably all over the world, and it's a disastrous deal. The Iranians are scoffing at our president. Can you imagine going and making a deal or having the outlines of a deal and then have them go back to their country and say what a great deal they made, and we haven't even concluded the deal yet, and they're telling everybody what a great deal. If that ever happened to me, I'd say, well, wait a minute, we better take a look at this. They're all dancing in the streets over there. What a great deal. They're practically calling our president a fool. They're saying what an unbelievable deal. And that's the other thing. How long does it take to make a deal? You're not talking about sending rockets to the moon. How long does it take to say no? How long does it take for us? They negotiated this thing for over and over and over. And the reason is because the Iranians, who are very good negotiators, and the Persians are great negotiators, they would say no, and John Kerry, who's an amateur, would go back and say, well, they said no, let's give them this, let's give them that. It just never ended. Now, this is a deal, and I've said it, this is a deal that should be done in one day. And if it can't be done, you walk from the table and that's it. But this thing's taken months, and now they get back together at the end of June. And how do you get back with people that are talking about destroying Israel and destroying plenty of other places? How do you do this? We have ships right now going, and it looks like they're in confrontation, or they will be in confrontation potentially. I mean, what kind of a situation is this when you deal? So what you do is you walk, and they'll either get back to you or they won't. But this is not something that should take many, many months, and then they're going to start again negotiation in June. Now, I will say this. I would say, just on what I'm saying, that what they're doing is it's called tapping along. They're tapping our very amateurish negotiators, our incompetent negotiators along, and they're probably doing lots of bad things having to do with nuclear while we're being tapped along. we don't know what we're doing, and they just keep it's called tap, tap, tap. They're tapping us along, and they're probably making plenty of things that we don't know about, and unfortunately that our people don't want to know about. So I appreciate your question very much, but the deal is a horrible deal, and certainly a horrible deal for Israel, and a horrible deal for us.
And you're live on the phone tonight with Donald Trump. If you have a question for Mr. Trump, please press *3 so you can be placed into the queue, or you can go to www.donaldjtrump.com for more information. Our next question comes from Robert in Columbia. Robert, you had a question. You're live with Mr. Trump.
Yes.
Robert.
The question I want to ask is, how would you deal with the agencies and the departments in our federal government that we have at the present time, and the things that they do and the money that they waste?
Well, it's a very good question, and when you talk about deficits, I would tell you this. You know, we owe right now 18 trillion, but it's going up very rapidly, Robert, and it's going to reach a point, that $24 trillion number, which will hit pretty soon. That's called the point of no return. That will be disastrous economically for the country. The way we're going, it's going to be very quickly. The way I do it is, as I said, I would bring our jobs back. I would take plenty of money from other countries that are just using us as a feeding trough. I mean, they're just using us. But what I would do with certain agencies, like, as an example, Department of Education, another one, I mean, to spend the kind of money that we're spending there, when this should virtually be gotten rid of, because you have to get rid of Common Core. So Department of Education is one. Another one, very important, environmental protection. Okay. I'm a big protectionist. I believe we have to protect the environment. But they have so many rules and regulations, it makes it impossible for our businesses to compete. Between that and manipulation and all of the other things we have going, it's a wonder that our businesses are competing, and to a large extent they're not. But the Department of Environmental Protection, that is a department that the rules and regulations would have to be changed, and many of those elements of that agency would have to be gotten rid of. I'll give you an example. I'm in the real estate business. I build lots of different things. And when you have faucets, they have restrictors on your faucet where water doesn't come out. For sinks and toilets and showers and all of this, the water doesn't come. So what do? You leave the water on 3, 4, 5 times as long. It's a horrible situation, and the restrictions are horrendous. And the problem is, they have restrictions in areas where you don't need water. I mean, where water is all over the place. You can't get rid of the water. So this, if you're in the middle of the desert, that's one thing. If you're in the middle of an area that has tremendous rainfall and tremendous water, and they don't know what to do with it, you still have the same restrictions. It's got to be ended. I mean, so many of those things. They're stopping our energy production. They're stopping so many different things. So that's got to be ended. So it's a great question, and we can certainly reduce costs tremendously by getting rid of, or at least limiting, but by getting rid of certain agencies. Absolutely, Robert.
And again, you're live with Donald Trump tonight in South Carolina on a live telephone town hall. If you have a question for Mr. Trump, please press *3 and you'll be placed into the queue, or you can go to www.donaldjtrump.com for more information. James in Florence, you have a question for Mr. Trump. James, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Trump, as a retired military person, and as you are a business person, how would you take care of the country in these two manners?
Well, it's a very good question, and I am, as you probably know, James, very, very strong on building up our military, and very, very strong on taking care of our vets. Our vets are taken care of like 3rd or 4th class citizens. They're treated horribly. We have no idea what we're doing. We build a hospital and spend billions of dollars on building a hospital, and after the hospital is built, it's no good. It doesn't even work properly, and we don't have people that know what they're doing. So number one, I would take care of our vets, and number two, I would make our military stronger than ever before. I'm in the real estate business, and all the times I get listings of naval bases and military bases that are for sale. They're selling, and I keep saying to my people, how many of these bases can they sell? How many do we have? We're always selling bases. They're getting rid of bases. Well, we've never been hated so much as we are right now. And this is a time to build up. We have to be strong. It doesn't mean we're going to necessarily use that strength. The fact is, the stronger we are, the less likely it will be that we'll have to use our military. But we're not prepared. We have military now where we have old, equipment. We have old stuff. We go into Yemen and these places, and we leave behind $400 and $500 million worth of equipment. We teach the Iraqis how to fight. Well, they don't fight, and then they leave hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment. And you know who has that equipment. You know, everybody knows who has that equipment. It's called ISIS. They take our equipment. We put it over there. They have a skirmish, and everybody runs for the hills, and these guys come in and take over our beautiful equipment. So I would build up our military very, very strongly. I am totally, much more so, I would say, than anybody else. And we'll be making so much money when we straighten out our foreign trade and when we make proper deals so that so many of these countries, I deal with people from these countries, I deal with top people from these countries, including leaders, they can't believe what they're getting away with. So we will make our country so strong and so rich again that we will be able to build up our military. So it's very important, build up the military and take care of our vets.
And before we go to our next caller, which is going to be Kathy in Florence, I want to remind you we have a poll question going on right now, and the question is, what is the most important issue facing our country? If you believe it is national debt, press 1. Terrorism, 2. Taxes, 3. Illegal immigration, 4. Or the economy, 5. That's national debt, 1. Terrorism, 2. Taxes, 3. Illegal immigration, 4. Or the economy, 5. Kathy in Florence, you had a question. You're live on with Mr. Trump, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Trump.
Hi, Kathy.
My question is, you know, I can't remember how long now, I go to the poll and I vote for who I think will do the least amount of damage. You know, it's a sad state of affairs. But what I want to know is, you know, I don't see that the president gets to do much of anything unless you do like Obama has and circumvent our Constitution and do things you're not supposed to. But on the other hand, I'd have to say that's the only way you're going to get anything done. I just don't like what he's done with it. How would you handle...
Right. It's really called leadership. He's using executive orders because he's essentially given up, because he's not a leader. He never led before. He never employed anybody before. He never created jobs before. He never did anything. And I will say, it's a lot easier for somebody like that to get elected because he didn't have a past. He's never done any of these things, so they can't say, oh, he did this, he did that, we don't like what he did here. He never did anything. He was an organizer. I mean, he would, you know, everybody knows he was somebody that didn't do it and therefore didn't have that past, and by not having the past, there was nothing to criticize him over. The fact is that you have to be a leader. He wasn't a leader, and he's not a leader. He's a worse president than Jimmy Carter. I thought I would never say that I was going to see in my lifetime a president worse than Jimmy Carter. And he's a worse president than Jimmy Carter. And I just never thought this would be possible. I never thought it would be possible. And I don't even think it's close. So I think the only one that really likes Obama and really can be happy about Obama is Jimmy Carter, because he now no longer is at the bottom of the pack. The way you get things done, and I've dealt with politicians all my life, and the way you get things done is leadership. You got to get everybody in the room, and you got to get it knocked out and get everybody happy. And there'll be compromise, and there'll be lots of different things going on, but you got to get it done. It's called leadership. I mean, Obama plays golf. He goes out and plays golf. He gets to play hundreds of rounds of golf. And, you know, I'm a big fan of golf and sports. I love sports more than anybody. But, you know, when you're president, you got to get this stuff done. You don't have time. And if you're going to play golf, play with people that you have to make deals with, so that you play golf with Boehner and McConnell and all the different people. You beat them over there so you can get along and get it done. So it can get done, but it's called leadership, and there's no chance he gets it. Now, as far as executive orders are concerned, the only thing good about the executive orders he signs, which are totally horrible and totally illegal, and he only did it because he gave up, but the only thing good about him is the new president could come in and immediately with a signature stop that executive order. You can terminate that executive order immediately. So that's something that is really good. If the right person is elected, that person can immediately, as an example, on the borders, that whole thing with people flowing into the country, that can immediately be terminated with a signature. And I would make that and Obamacare and a few other things my absolute first act.
And just to remind everyone, we're live tonight with Donald Trump. And if you have a question for Mr. Trump, please press star 3 and you'll be placed into the queue. Or you can go to www.donaldjtrump.com. We also have a poll question right now and asking you what is the most important issue facing our country. If you believe it is the national debt, press 1. Terrorism, press 2. Taxes, 3. Illegal immigration, 4. Or the economy, 5. Our next caller is going to go to Marie in Surfside. And Marie, you're going to be live with Donald Trump. Marie, you have a question for Mr. Trump? Hello, Marie. Marie may be gone. We'll come back to Marie if we can get to her. How about Sharon in York? Sharon, you will be live now with Donald Trump. Sharon, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Let me be the first to say hello, Mr. President.
Well, it will be very interesting. One thing, we'll be making this country great again quickly. I can tell you that, Sharon.
I'm really worried about our military. With the boys that are still, like in Iraq, and being held captive, how do we get them home?
Well, think of this. We are in a negotiation over nuclear, and we have 3 or 4, but we have 3 people over there. Now it's actually going up. And instead of saying at the very beginning of this negotiation, look, fellas, and I'm sorry to say this, Sharon, but they're all fellas on the other side. But look, fellas, let's get these 3 guys out of here. One is in jail because he's a Christian. He's a pastor, and he's in jail for that reason. Another one's a military person. You say, look, fellas, you got 3 people. Now it's another person. And 3 people. Let them go. Let them go. It's going to send a good signal to you. Going to send a good signal to us. Everybody's going to be happy. You don't need them. You don't want them. Let them go. It would send out a wonderful signal before we start the negotiations on the nuclear. Now, if they would say, no, we won't do that, that's very bad faith. I would say let's not negotiate with them any longer. But they don't even bring that subject up. They've never even brought it up. They don't ask for this. Just this part, it's a 10-second. Now, nuclear is so much more important, and these are 3 and 4 very important lives. But you're talking about nuclear, which is really one of the biggest problems that the world has today. So, obviously, that's something that we can never discount. But just as a little preamble, fellas, let these people go. The right messenger, they will let them go. If they say no, you're off to a very bad start, and I would say an agreement doesn't get signed. Now, what I would do is knock the hell out of them with sanctions. Who negotiates by reducing the sanctions as opposed to increasing the sanctions and then negotiate? So they have to read the art of the deal. Who negotiates by reducing sanctions? We're the only ones. Let's reduce the sanctions because they demanded the sanctions been reduced. Then they want the sanctions absolutely knocked off immediately. You know what? If they really did what they were supposed to do, but you're not going to be able to tell. And most likely they're lying to us. And the reason they're lying to us is because they have absolutely no respect for our president or for our country. So the negotiation is a disaster. Up the sanctions and negotiate from strength. That's what should have been done, and it can still be done, but we're getting so far down the line, and it's such an embarrassment to our country that it's getting hard to change course right now. But believe me, it can be done, and it can even be done now. Thank you.
And again, you're live with Donald Trump tonight. If you have a question for Mr. Trump, please press star 3 and be placed into the queue, or you can go to www.donaldjtrump.com. Also, we have a poll we're asking our listeners right now to answer what is the most important issue facing our country. If you believe it is the national debt, press 1. Terrorism, press 2. Taxes, 3. Illegal immigration, 4. Or the economy, number 5. And next, we are going to go to Michael in Westminster for a question. Michael, you're live with Mr. Trump. Are you there, Michael?
Yes. Yes. Hello.
Hello, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing fine. President Trump, hopefully, in the future.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate it.
No problem.
We have the same thing in mind, Michael. We want to make the country great. And I just, for so many years, I've dealt with politicians. And honestly, they're easy. I mean, I've made a fortune because I deal with politicians. But they're not able to do it. They'll start changing their tune. Watch. All of a sudden, they'll be talking about China. The fact is, they can talk about China. They can talk about Mexico. They can talk about Japan. They can talk about Brazil. They can talk about all these things, Michael. They'll never be able to do it because they don't know how to do it. So you watch what happens. They'll start changing their tune. But if they ever got into office, it would be, you're just wasting your time. So anyway, go ahead with your question. I'm sorry, Michael.
No problem. My question is, Obama, I listened to you talk about the deals and, making with Iran and all this kind of stuff, and how, he really is kind of like the dog with his tail tucked between his legs and backing up, where he should be standing up, and being the world's leader, which he is. He's the most powerful man in the world right now. But he's doing it, like I said, like a dog with his tail tucked between his legs. But he's become a wizard of this social media type of thing that he runs, where he reaches out to these groups that are coming up and eligible to vote and everything, and they look at him like he's Mr. Cool, but they don't realize he's destroying this country. And my thing is, how do you combat the social media type of wave that he has going on? He's going to pass it right on to the next Democratic nominee, and they're going to use the same tactics, and the people are going to be foolish enough to fall for it. This young generation, the ones you see on things like Water's World and stuff, they couldn't tell you, their left shoe from their right shoe. I mean, how do you combat that, and how do you go up against that? And do you have a plan to combat the social media?
Yeah, it's such a great statement, Michael, and it's so true. And a lot of the people that are pouring across the borders, as you know, I watch as our Republican candidates, they all want to many of them want to make deals and all that. Remember, from the Republican standpoint, is that 100% of those people are voting Democrat. They're voting Democrat. There's nothing to be even talked about. And some of these guys like Bush and others, without even mentioning too many names, but others that are very soft on immigration, they don't realize that it's also part of the scheme to get more people as Democrats. And it's getting tougher and tougher. If we put out the right message, and if we put out the Make America Great Again, which, by the way, some of the candidates have copied that message. I've had that message for 4 years that I've said it. And we even have trademark applications, but they use because they have no imagination. They can't come up with their own theme. But they couldn't do it anyway. So if we put out the right message, and if we build strength through talking about how this country can be, in fact, great again, how people are going to get jobs. We have so many people at poverty level. We have a president who's an African-American president, and yet the African-American people have never done worse. I mean, they're doing so badly economically. Their numbers are much worse than they were for many, many years, and they're doing horribly. Now, you would think that if you have an African-American president, he would have done something, and people don't know, but the numbers are worse than they've been in years for African-Americans. So you have to tell people the message of positive. You have to be positive about the country. You have to make them want to go out and make a great living and not focus on minimum wage. You want to really talk about minimum wage won't even come into effect because we'll have so many different jobs brought in by intelligence that you won't have to worry so much about the minimum wage. So you have to give spirit to the voters so they actually go out and vote for you. And there's so many different blocks of people. I mean, I mentioned African Americans. The young people, they graduate from college, they can't get a job. They can't get a job. They come out and they study and they work hard and they borrow money, and then the government wants the money. You know, the government makes a fortune on student loans. They're loaning money to students that are graduating from colleges. They have great hopes, and then they graduate and they can't get a job. That would all change with me. I would create so many different incentives that you would be able to beat their phony message, which is basically a message that is highly negative and really stands for something that this country is not all about. Thank you very much, Michael.
And if you have a question for Mr. Trump, star 3 to get placed into the queue. John in Georgetown, you have a question for Mr. Trump. John, you're going to be live with Mr. Trump.
Okay, yeah. I'd like to know how you're going to shut off the Mexican border. I mean, I don't mean stopping everybody from walking across. I mean stopping all these illegals from coming up that are taking jobs from Americans.
Well, you're right. You're right about that, John. You're right about it. And you're going to stop it by we are going to do a wall. number one, and I'm going to have Mexico pay for the wall because what they're doing to us economically, we're sending our jobs all over to Mexico. We're not going to spend money for that wall. We're going to have Mexico pay for the wall. And I'd build it, believe me, because I know how to build it much less expensively and much more powerfully. And we're also going to have troops over there. Nobody's coming in unless they're legal. And that I can tell you, and that is not even tough. But we're going to build a wall, and we're going to have Mexico. The money that they are making off the United States is incredible. And they're going to pay for that wall. In one form or another, Mexico is going to pay for the wall. I have big litigation with Mexico, and I won a tremendous amount of money. And the court system in Mexico is so corrupt that I can't collect the money. I won a lot of money, and we can't. Our lawyers are saying, well, it's a corrupt system over there. Mexico is not our friend. Just remember that. They're not our friend. They don't like us, and they think we're very, very stupid in terms of our leadership. So Mexico has to be dealt with because they're taking a tremendous amount. They have oil. They're doing very nicely. They have nothing but crime. They have tremendous crime. The drug situation along the border is unbelievable. And the money that they're making from our country, because we have unbelievably poor leadership and, frankly, stupid, incompetent leadership, is incredible. So, very strongly, only legals are coming into this country. You're not going to have people flowing into this country, that I can tell you, and it'll stop immediately. It won't take months and it won't take years. It will stop immediately, and we will build large sections of the border with a wall that will not be able to be penetrated. And thank you very much.
William, you're going to be next with Mr. Trump Live. William, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Hi, William.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate you taking my call. And I'd like to know what your stance is on the incompetency of the bureaucrats in so many of our federal agencies. And are you willing to, as you have done before, just tell them you're fired, you're gone because you're incompetent?
William, I would say you're fired so fast. And, you're right. You have tremendous numbers of people that don't care about environment, that don't care about our children, if they're with Department of Education, that don't care about anything. These are people that are collecting a check, and that's all they care about. And you damn right I'd say you're fired. I'd say it quickly. And, from my standpoint, you mentioned the word you're fired. The Apprentice became a tremendous hit. NBC is dying for me. I gave up a lot by doing this. NBC is dying for me to go back and do more. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of prestige. I have a primetime television show. When a politician runs for office, they don't give up anything. They run, they lose, they win, they run again. That's all they do is run for office and talk. They talk, nothing happens. But that's all they do. When I run for office, I'm giving up, I'd be giving up primetime television. I'm giving up jobs all over the world. We're doing phenomenally. Now, fortunately, this time I have children that are now old enough. My children are very capable children, and they would be able to run things, and I have executives that are excellent. But I give up a lot. Politicians give up nothing. They don't give up anything. All they do is run. Win, lose, or draw. They run, and they run again. So, but I feel that there's a calling here. I mean, it's a calling. And the calling is to save our country, because our country is going bad. And very soon, we're not going to have a country that's savable.
And Nancy, you're going to be next on the line with Donald Trump. Nancy had a question about veterans for Mr. Trump.
Yes, Mr. Trump.
Hi, Nancy.
As the widow of a military person, I'd like to know why it is taking so long for our veterans to get the aid and the medical care that they need. They cut us down to nearly nothing. And
right.
We have so many people that need assistance, and if you're just put on a list and shoved down the line, when can something be done about this?
Well, 2 words, Nancy, fast, but 2 words: incompetence and corruption. There's tremendous corruption. When I look at the cost of what they do and what they build, it's got to be corruption, because there's no way they could be spending that much money. I've spoken to many military people over the last long period of time. I'm the one that held the Veterans Day Parade in New York when the veterans weren't respected, and very few people came out to a parade. I held one of the biggest parades in the history of New York City. I took it over. The real 2 words are, and it's very unfair, corruption, and that's a big word. It's a word that absolutely is very important. And the other word is incompetence. I have seen veterans, and veterans have come up to me saying that they'll go to an office at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they'll sit there all day, and then they'll have to come back for 3-4 days just to have a consultation with a doctor. And it's very unfair, and it's no way to lead a life. For people that were really brave and really, I mean, these are tremendous people. And I've heard stories that are incredible. And these are people that are relatively healthy. The people that aren't healthy, those people are getting treated even worse. But I've heard stories where the wait times are days and days and days once you get there. And to get there, you have to wait months. So that would all end very quickly. We would get the right group of people in there, and it would taking care of our veterans to me is very, very important. Thank you.
And Courtney in Myrtle Beach, you had a question for Mr. Trump. Courtney, we're going to put you on live with Mr. Trump.
Hey, Mr. Trump.
Hello, Courtney.
How are you?
Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, I hope you are our next president. I may lose you. My phone is dying.
Well, I hear it pretty well right now. Go ahead, really quickly, so that we don't lose you.
Okay. I just want to. I agree with you on everything you're saying. That our president, he's just a wuss.
Well, he's incompetent. I don't know. He's incompetent, certainly.
He's just, counts off to everybody else. And I'm really upset about the $10 billion going to Iran.
Right.
What about bringing it home to our country?
Well, we would not be sending money there, believe me. And can you imagine paying all of that money to Iran when we're in the middle of a negotiation, and then have somebody from the State Department, the young lady with the nice big fat glasses from the State Department, saying, we didn't want to complicate the negotiation by bringing up other subjects. So here we are paying hundreds of millions of dollars to Iran. We're paying hundreds of millions because they didn't want to complicate the nuclear situation. So they said, instead of complicating it, we'll give them hundreds of millions of dollars. That's money that we shouldn't be giving them at all. So, I mean, this was her excuse for why are we paying all of this money to Iran. We're paying it because they didn't want to bring it up at the nuclear. Well, that's a great negotiating point. This money that we're paying them becomes a major negotiating point. But they decided, no, we don't want to do that because that wouldn't be appropriate to bring up during these negotiations. These people don't have a clue. Thank you very much.
And again, if you have a question for Mr. Trump, it's *3 to get into the queue. Next, we're going to ask Mary in Florence to speak to Mr. Trump. Mary had a question about Israel.
Yes, I did. I was wondering, Mr. Trump, how would you be in defense of Israel and your friendship with Netanyahu?
Well, I do have a great respect for him and a friendship with him. I think he's been treated very unfairly. I think the president has put their public relations machine full-time against Israel and full-time against Netanyahu. I think it's disgraceful. And, there are bastions over there in that part of the world, and they're being treated very badly. And I'll tell you what, if this deal goes through, and frankly, what can I say? I think Israel is in very, very dire straits. And you have people openly saying, their top generals, their top leaders are saying we want to wipe out Israel in so many words. So Israel is in big, big trouble, and we have to come to the aid. I mean, we think of it. I have friends who are Jewish, and they say to me, they are so disappointed in Obama. They've supported Obama. And some of them, which is the most incredible thing, they continue to support Obama. I said, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And it's almost like they just don't know any better, because Obama is the worst thing that has ever happened to Israel. And Israel is going to be in serious, serious trouble if we're not smart. And by the way, and so are we going to be in serious trouble. Not only Israel, we're going to be in serious trouble if we don't get smart very, very quickly. Thank you very much for your question.
And again, you're live with Mr. Trump. If you have a question, *3 to be placed into the queue. Next, we'll go to Annie, who has a question about bringing jobs back to America. Annie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Is Donald Trump?
Hello, Annie.
Donald Trump?
How are you? Yes, Annie, go ahead.
How are you? As you can tell, I'm a retired from New York. I'm a New Yorker that retired on Pawleys Island.
Good.
And yep, and I love everything that you're saying. And if you do run, let me tell you, I'm going to have to take my husband off the ceiling, because he's been saying Donald Trump since Bush Jr. ran. So, but my question on the economy, A lot of jobs that we lost also was because of unions. How would you handle that? You said you want to bring them back, but to get good workers now, unfortunately, we have lost generations of good workers. And unions, you know, at one time I think they were extremely important, and we needed them. Now I just think they're in the middle, grabbing more money from the hardworking people that, between federal income tax, between state income tax, between city income tax, between food income tax, and now you have to pay union fees. It's not easy for people. How would you handle that?
Well, you have to have it so that we have people working in this country and they can't be impeded. And, you know, certain sections, you come from New York, you know, New York is very heavily unionized, and in some cases they do a wonderful job, in some cases they do a terrible job. But you have to be able to allow people in this country to work. And whether it's Boeing, you know, I watched that whole Boeing disaster in South Carolina, which took so long. I mean, just took so long to get that going. But ultimately, the result turned out to be pretty good. But you have to be able to, otherwise you're not going to be able to compete with these other countries that are just taking such advantage. So you have to be able to compete from that standpoint. And if the unions have to suffer because of it, we have no choice, because we're not going to have a country. We are losing so much money. We are losing all of our jobs. We are losing virtually everything. And, you know, I started out this call by saying, when was the last time you heard our country win something? I mean, think of it. We never win. We don't win at trade. We don't win at negotiations. We don't win with Russia. Putin is very popular in Russia right now. I mean, he's getting poll numbers and these are taken by our pollsters that are in the 80s, which is unheard of. I mean, we don't win anymore. And it's got to change. We have to allow people to work and to work at the right. I'm a big free market person, but I tell you what, with trade, I love the concept of free trade, and this is a little off that subject, but it's very pertinent, free trade. But you know, the one problem with free trade is you need smart people running your country if you're going to do free trade. Otherwise, free trade turns out to be very stupid trade. So you have to allow our people to work and to make great livings and all of that, but we have to compete. You know, it's a world economy. We have to be able to compete with the rest of the world. We can beat the rest of the world. We have better potential than anybody, but not if we're going to be stymied by a president like we have right now, who is a total disaster.
And we've got time for one more question. We're going to go to Bart and Pawleys Island, and Bart had a question about our country's debt. Bart, you're live with Mr. Trump tonight.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't stand to even watch the news anymore, but when I hear all the things that you're saying, those are the exact same words that are going through my mind every single night.
Yeah,
but I am curious to know, how in the world are you going to deal with our debt in our country?
Well, good. And I'm going to just start because you say when you watch the news at night. You mean after you watch 15 minutes of weather? Every time there's a storm, every time there's a little wind, every time there's rain, it takes you 10 minutes to get to the news, and it's just absolutely out of control. So I'm almost surprising you're watching a lot of the news, because that's what happens. But as I said before, Bart, and so important, we have to take our jobs back from foreign countries that are just eating our lunch. They have much smarter negotiators than us. They make much better deals than us, and we have to take it back. And we can take it back very, very quickly. People don't realize that we have the cards, because we're allowing them to come in, take our jobs, take our manufacturing, make our products. And I mean, we're being reduced to services. We're being reduced to nursing homes and things like this. We need our manufacturing back. And we can do a better job than they do. But you can't, if they're going to be allowed to play with their monetary supplies, and if they're going to be allowed to manipulate their currencies, you can't compete with that, because our people aren't smart enough to compete with that. So I can only say we'll bring back our jobs, we'll bring back our manufacturing, we'll save Social Security. And I don't mean save it just from save it. We're going to make sure it doesn't get cut, because there is so much money out there that if we were smart, we would be able to bring it back here and not have to cut Social Security, which frankly every other Republican wants to do. And that's not going to happen. If I run and if I win, that will never, ever happen. But we'll become a rich nation again, and we'll become a great nation again. And I sadly have to use the word again. But right now we're in big, big trouble. So I just really appreciate the call. I love South Carolina. I love the people. I have so many friends there, and I must tell you, I love our country, and we have to make it again great again. And just thank you, everybody, for being on the call. I hear it's a tremendous number of people on this call, and we'll be doing it again. We'll be doing it again often. But we're going to take this country. We will make it great again. And thank you all very much.